A warm welcome, my friend. Tonight, we step into the quiet chambers of a man whose curiosity burned brighter than the flames that tried to contain it. The air is hushed, heavy with candle smoke. Outside, Florence sleeps under a velvet sky. Bells toll faintly from the Duomo, their echoes fading into silence. You are inside a dim cathedral nave. The candles have nearly burned down, their wax dripping in uneven towers. Then your eyes catch it. A great bronze lamp, swinging above, back and forth, slow at first, then steady as a heartbeat. And in that moment, you are Galileo Galilei. He watches from a pew, his cloak drawn close against the chill. He is only a young medical student then, not yet the name that would rattle the world. But his mind is awake, restless. He counts each swing of the lamp against the rhythm of his own pulse. Once, twice, 3 times, he whispers the numbers under his breath. Something strange emerges. The intervals are the same. No matter how wide or narrow the arc, the timing does not change. His heart races faster, but the lamp remains steady, loyal to its unseen law. This small discovery, pendulum motion, would one day reshape how the world keeps time. But tonight, it is only a whisper. A secret between Galileo and the shadows of the cathedral. He cannot yet know how dangerous secrets will become. That this quiet observation, tucked into the folds of his memory, will grow into ideas the church will fear, resist, and try to silence. For now, the boy sits in silence, listening to the breath of the nave, the scrape of his own shoes on the stone floor, the whisper of possibility in the air. And when he stands to leave, the lamp still sways, faithful as the stars. Yet outside those stars, mysteries far greater and far riskier wait for him. Mysteries that will draw him to midnight rooftops, to hidden manuscripts, to forbidden experiments in the very hours when the world sleeps. The question is, how long can a man chase truth before truth itself betrays him? Florence, 1570s. The city is alive in the day with merchants calling from stalls, the clang of blacksmiths echoing through narrow streets, and the smell of roasted chestnuts curling into the air. But when night falls, silence stretches over the rooftops like a velvet cloak. Up there, away from the watchful eyes of priests and tutors, a young Galileo slips onto the tiles. The sky opens wide above him. You crouch with him on the slanted roof, feeling the cool clay beneath your palms. The night air is sharp, tinged with smoke from wood fires. Somewhere below, a dog barks and is silenced. He tilts his head back. The stars are fierce tonight, sharp white against blackness. Most men glance at them and see only signs of God's design. Galileo sees questions, endless, burning questions. Why do some stars appear brighter than others? Do they move or are they fixed? Is there a pattern hidden in the chaos? His father, a stern but cultured man, has trained him in music and mathematics. Galileo cannot help but measure the heavens the way he measures notes in a sonata. The stars, to him, are not decorations. They are numbers waiting to be written down. He does not yet have a telescope. That invention lies years in the future. But he has his eyes, his mind, and the restless heartbeat of curiosity. He sketches crude maps of the sky by candlelight, noting where each star rises, how long until it disappears. And still, he hides these sketches. He knows the church watches with suspicion. Questions too bold can quickly turn into accusations. To wonder about the order of the heavens is to risk stepping onto dangerous ground. A neighbor calls out from a balcony, breaking the stillness. Galileo startles, quickly shoving his papers into his cloak. His heart pounds. For a moment, he feels the weight of being seen, not just as a boy with questions, but as a boy with forbidden hunger for knowledge. He waits until the voice fades, until shutters close. Then, slowly, carefully, he turns his gaze back upward. The stars shine as if nothing has changed. But Galileo knows something has. Inside him, a fire has taken root, one he cannot smother. It will drive him into libraries, into hidden laboratories, and one day, into battle with the greatest power in Italy. But for now, the boy on the rooftop breathes in the night air and clings to the stars, not yet knowing that those same stars will one day drag him into peril. By day, Galileo is no stargazer. He is a medical student, dutifully trailing through the long, echoing corridors of the University of Pisa. The scent of parchment, ink, and sweat fills the lecture halls. Professors drone in Latin, their words heavy with authority, their robes rustling like wings of dark birds. You sit beside him, a worn notebook open. The lecturer recites Galen's ancient teachings, how the body is ruled by four humors, how disease is imbalance, how truth lies in tradition. Students scratch quills across paper, nodding obediently. But Galileo's hand hesitates. He frowns. He does not believe. His father's music had already taught him that harmony comes not from dogma, but from testing, from listening, from experiment. And so, while others bow their heads, Galileo dares to lift his eyes. In the anatomy hall, he leans forward as surgeons expose muscle and bone. The stench of blood and herbs thickens the air. Students gag. Some turn pale. Galileo watches closely, counting ribs, measuring sinews, questioning what Galen wrote centuries ago. He whispers to himself, does the body match the book, or is the book wrong? Such thoughts are dangerous. To doubt Galen is to doubt the very foundation of medicine. Yet doubt clings to Galileo like a shadow. One afternoon, during a heated lesson, a professor proclaims that heavier bodies fall faster than lighter ones. The students murmur agreement. After all, Aristotle himself said it. Galileo cannot keep silent. He challenges the idea with quiet but firm words. What if they fall together, equal in speed? The room stiffens. A silence falls heavier than stone. The professor glares, robes billowing as he turns away. No reply, only disdain. The message is clear. Some questions are not welcome. That night, Galileo lies awake in his narrow bed, the shutters rattling in the coastal wind. He replays the silence, the sting of rebuke. He knows he has touched a nerve. He also knows he cannot stop. If the halls of learning refuse him, he will take his questions elsewhere, into hidden rooms, midnight trials, and experiments carried out in secret. And soon, Pisa's Leaning Tower itself will become his stage. The morning sun bakes the marble stones of Pisa. Market stalls are opening, their calls filling the square. Figs piled in baskets, fish gleaming on wet boards, bolts of bright cloth unfurled in the breeze. And above all of it, tilting against the sky, rises the famous tower. You stand there with Galileo. His cloak is drawn tight, though not from cold. It is summer, and the air is hot. Instead, the cloak hides two objects, heavy spheres of different size and weight. Aristotle's words still echo in his ears. Heavier bodies fall faster. Every professor, every student, every learned man accepts it as gospel. But Galileo's mind will not bow to it. He climbs the tower steps, spiraling upward past carved columns, feeling the weight of his burden and the weight of his doubt. At the top, the city spreads beneath him. Tiled roofs, the glittering river Arno, children darting between vendors. He steps to the edge. With one hand, he lifts the larger sphere. With the other, the smaller. He holds them out into the sunlight. A crowd has gathered below, curious at the figure on the tower. Some know his reputation already. Arrogant, questioning, dangerous. He lets go. The spheres drop. Air rushes around them. And then, impact. They strike at the ground together, so close the sound is nearly one. Gasps rise from the square. The students murmur, the professors scowl. But Galileo's heart surges. The truth is not what the books declare. The truth is what the world itself reveals. Still, he cannot shout his triumph. He cannot write it boldly, not yet. For each discovery makes him a little more suspect, a little more marked in the eyes of authority. That evening, back in his quarters, he places the spheres on his desk. He studies them by candlelight, tracing their dents from the fall. Outside, the bells toll, summoning men to prayer. Galileo whispers to himself, almost as a vow, I will follow where nature leads. But already, whispers travel through Pisa. Professors mutter of disrespect. Rivals warn of heresy. And in distant Rome, word of a restless young scholar begins to drift toward ears that do not welcome unrest. The streets of Padua are hushed. It is well past midnight, and the shutters of students' lodgings are drawn tight. Yet in a narrow house on Via del Santo, a window flickers with light. Inside, Galileo bends over a rough workbench. His cloak hangs on a peg, dusted with sawdust and oil. The air smells of melted wax, ground metal, and the faint sharpness of vinegar. The small flame of a candle sputters, throwing shadows across the walls lined with tools, compasses, rulers, sketches pinned with iron nails. You stand beside him. He has just returned from a day of lecturing at the university, hours spent reciting geometry to restless students. Yet his real lessons begin only when the world sleeps. On the bench lies a length of copper pipe. Galileo turns it slowly, hands blackened with soot. He is experimenting with lenses smuggled from Venice, fragile as dragonfly wings. He sets them at either end of the tube, peers through, adjusts, mutters under his breath. The candle flame wavers, comes closer, then vanishes into blur. He knows the risk. These nights leave him exhausted, but more than that, suspect. Neighbors whisper, Why does Professor Galilei burn candles long after midnight? Why does he speak of measuring stars and moving worlds? To many, curiosity, this sharp cuts too close to arrogance, and arrogance too close to heresy. He ignores the whispers. His hand trembles with excitement as he shifts the lens again. Suddenly the flame bursts into clarity, larger, sharper, 100 tiny details revealed in its flickering. He inhales sharply. The telescope is not yet born, but its shadow stirs in this cramped little workshop. Galileo leans back, pressing fingers to his eyes. Wax drips, ticking softly on the wood. He blows out the candle, plunging the room into darkness. For a long moment, he sits still, listening to the silence. His mind hums louder than any bell. Outside, Padua sleeps, innocent beneath the stars. But Galileo has touched something that will wake the heavens themselves. And in the quiet, he wonders, when he finally turns such a lens skyward, what truths will stare back at him? The year is 1609. The streets of Padua are restless with talk of war, trade, and the wealth of Venice. Merchants return from the lagoon boasting of Dutch sailors who carry strange glass tubes, spyglasses they call them, able to bring distant ships close to the eye. Galileo hears the rumors. He cannot ignore them. One evening, long after his students have left, he locks his door, sets fresh candles, and returns to the workbench where lenses gleam like captured stars. You watch as he fixes the final piece of glass into its casing. His fingers tremble, not from fear, but from anticipation. He lifts the tube to his eye. The world jumps closer. Church spires sharpen, roof tiles reveal their cracks, distant trees rustle in impossible detail. He exhales, stunned, and then, slowly, he turns the instrument toward the night sky. The stars explode, no longer mere points of light, but radiant worlds, countless and infinite. He gasps as the rough face of the moon swims into view, pitted, scarred, alive with mountains and valleys. No perfect divine sphere, but a body as flawed as Earth itself. His heart thunders. Aristotle's heavens are crumbling in his hands. And then he sees it. Tiny lights circling Jupiter, 4 of them, moving night after night in a dance that cannot be denied. He sketches them feverishly by candlelight, black smudges across parchment. These are not stars. They are moons, other worlds bound to another sun. If the church believes all creation circles Earth, what will they say when confronted with this? Will they see truth or betrayal? For now, Galileo tells no one. He sits alone at the window, the telescope clutched tight. His ink-stained fingers shake as he writes, hides the page, writes again. The silence of the night presses around him, heavy as stone. And yet, even in silence, he knows. The heavens have spoken. But when he speaks of what he has seen, voices far louder than his will answer back. Daylight in Padua is very different from the star-struck silence of his nights. Galileo wakes late, after hours spent hunched over parchment, and breakfast is plain, coarse bread, sometimes dipped in wine, with olives or a little cheese if the purse allows. You sit with him at the table. His daughter Virginia, still young, plays nearby, her laughter echoing against plaster walls. Galileo watches her fondly, though his eyes carry the shadows of midnight vigils. He breaks the bread with hands stained by ink, his nails dark from handling soot and glass. Outside, Padua stirs. Merchants call, bells ring from churches, the smell of roasted chestnuts drifts through the streets. Yet Galileo walks quickly, his cloak wrapped tight, avoiding glances. He knows some of his neighbors whisper about his long hours, his unholy curiosity. A professor is expected to teach Aristotle, not to question him. At the university, his lectures are brilliant. His students adore him, drawn by his sharp wit and restless energy. He sketches diagrams across the board, chalk dust rising in clouds. He urges them to test, to measure, to doubt what is written. Some beam with excitement, scribbling notes. Others lower their heads, fearful of such boldness. But when the lectures end, Galileo hurries home. His true work waits where no eyes can see. That evening, the shutters are closed, candles lit once more. He sets aside his bread, pulls parchment from a drawer, and begins to copy his notes. Moon circling Jupiter, shadows across the moon's face. His quill scratches fast, urgent. He pauses only to rub his aching eyes. And then, 3 knocks at the door. He freezes. His heart pounds. Few men call on him this late. He blows out the candle. The room plunges into darkness. For a long breath, he listens. Silence, except for the wind rattling the shutters. Slowly, carefully, he relights the wick. He sets his notes beneath a pile of harmless geometry. Only then does he move to the door. But by the time he opens it, the street is empty. Galileo stands in the doorway, the flame flickering in his hand. The night presses around him. Was it the wind, or had someone been watching? The night is windless. A heavy stillness clings to the air, as though the world itself is holding its breath. Galileo pushes open the shutters of his study. The street below is dark, but above, the heavens blaze. You stand beside him as he lifts the long, polished tube to his eye. The telescope, his proudest creation, rests against the sill. The glass is cold against his cheek. He turns it toward the pale smear that stretches across the sky, the Milky Way. For centuries, philosophers declared it a mist, a divine cloud, a breath of heaven. Galileo braces himself. Slowly, he brings the light into focus and gasps. The cloud dissolves into a sea of fire, not vapor, not mist, thousands upon thousands of stars, burning together in a river of light. More stars than man could ever count, each one a sun, each one a world. His pulse hammers, his hand trembles on the tube. He lowers it, blinks, then looks again. It is real. The sky is not as the ancients claimed. The heavens are infinite, beyond measure, filled with worlds no scripture had ever named. He seizes his quill, scratching madly onto parchment, words spilling faster than his hand can keep pace. Innumerable stars, worlds uncountable, Milky Way, not cloud, but constellations. And yet, as he writes, he feels the weight of silence pressing in. He dares not read these words aloud. To say them in a classroom, to publish them in haste, would be to invite suspicion, accusation, perhaps worse. So, he hides them, buries them in notes, symbols, cautious phrases. The truth is too immense for him to keep, and too dangerous for him to share. From outside, a faint sound breaks the stillness. Footsteps on the cobbled street. Galileo stiffens. His hand hovers over his notes. Again, the sound, closer this time. A neighbor? A student? Or someone sent to listen? He slides the parchment beneath a heavier book, heart racing. The flame of the candle flutters as the footsteps pass, then fade into silence. Galileo exhales, but the paper beneath his hand still burns with the weight of what he has seen. The Milky Way has spoken to him, but who will dare to listen? The canals of Venice glitter beneath moonlight, gondolas rocking gently against wooden posts. Merchants drink late into the night, their laughter spilling over the water. But in the palaces of the Republic, curiosity takes a sharper shape. Galileo has brought his telescope here, unveiled it before senators and nobles. By day, they crowd his demonstrations, marveling as distant ships leap suddenly close to view. Venice smells opportunity, trade, defense, profit. They praise him, reward him, offer him lifetime tenure at Padua. But you see the flicker in their eyes. Wonder mixed with calculation. For them, this glass tube is not a bridge to the stars. It is a tool for watching enemies. At night, Galileo slips back to his lodgings. The halls are echoing, filled with tapestries and incense. Yet, behind the praise, he hears it already, whispers. This man sees too much. He speaks of things better left to God. In his chamber, he cannot sleep. He lights a candle, sets quill to paper. His notes spill with drawings of Jupiter's moons, sketches of the Milky Way. He wants to publish, to show the world, but he knows, once written, these truths cannot be taken back. A knock rattles his door, midnight again. Galileo startles, nearly overturning the ink. His heart leaps to his throat. He waits, silent. The knock comes once more. Slowly he opens the door. A student stands there, cloaked and breathless. He leans in, whispers, "Master, they are talking. Some say your glass reveals what only God should see." Galileo closes the door sharply. He paces the room, the student's words still echoing. He looks to the telescope on the table. It glimmers faintly in the candlelight, as if alive. He whispers to himself, defiant yet uneasy, "If God gave me eyes, was it not to use them?" But in the dark halls of power, men who fear new visions are already sharpening their knives. Night again in Padua. Galileo sits at his desk, his telescope pointed toward the heavens. Ink stains his fingers, his quill scratching furiously as he prepares a manuscript that will one day be known as the Sidereus Nuncius, the starry messenger. You are with him as he leans over the page, the air heavy with wax smoke. Each line describes what he has seen with his own eyes. The jagged craters of the moons of Jupiter circling like a miniature solar system, the endless scatter of the Milky Way. He writes as though racing against time itself, terrified that someone else may claim his discoveries first. But as his quill moves, the candlelight flickers, and in the shifting shadows, another image rises. A different room. Rome, years later. A cold hall of stone, the Inquisition chamber. Galileo, now an old man, kneels in heavy robes. His hands shake, not from discovery, but from fear. Across from him, men in scarlet and black whisper to one another, their faces lit by torchlight. A document lies on the table, the dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, the evidence of his so-called heresy. Their voices cut like knives. Do you deny? Do you recant? The vision fades, and you are back in Padua, where the young Galileo dips his quill again, unaware of how his words will echo into that very chamber. He sets down the pen and exhales, shoulders heavy, but eyes burning with resolve. He knows he is writing something that cannot be hidden forever. His discoveries must be shared, or they will die with him. Still, the unease lingers. He glances to the shuttered window, half expecting a knock, half expecting footsteps. None come. Only the silence of a world not yet ready for the truths waiting on his desk. And so he continues writing, line after line, never realizing that each word is another step closer to the trial he will one day face. Spring 1610. The presses of Venice groan with effort, their gears clanking, their ink-stained workers sweating under the weight of new pages. And on those pages, words that will change the world. Galileo's Sidereus Nuncius, the starry messenger. You walk with him into the print shop, the air thick with the smell of fresh ink and burning oil lamps. Sheets hang on lines like damp laundry, each carrying his revelations. Mountains on the moon, moons circling Jupiter, stars without number. Galileo holds one of the pages with trembling hands. He is no longer a whispering student in Pisa. He is a man daring to shout what the heavens have shown him. He smiles, pride breaking across his face. But in the back of the shop, a scholar frowns as he reads. His lips tighten. He mutters to another, "This contradicts Aristotle. Dangerous words." The pages spread quickly, faster than fire through dry straw. Across Italy, nobles and princes send letters begging for copies. The Medici court summons him to Florence. Galileo feels triumph bloom in his chest. At last, recognition, patronage, honor. And yet, in the quiet hours of the night, unease gnaws at him. He sits by candlelight, the book in his lap. He traces the printed letters with his finger, as though testing their weight. Every word feels heavier than the last. Then, another flicker, another vision. Rome again. The Inquisition's hall, years older, his face lined, his beard white. The book lies open before the judges, its pages spread like evidence of a crime. They lean over it, their voices sharp. You defy the scriptures. You mislead the faithful. Do you stand by these words? The image fades, leaving only the crackle of candle flame. Galileo exhales, but his heart beats faster. He knows the words are out now. They cannot be hidden. They cannot be taken back. Venice sleeps. The presses fall silent. But across Italy, copies of the Starry Messenger travel by carriage, by ship, by land. Some who read it will marvel, others will rage. And somewhere in Rome, unseen but listening, the church begins to stir. Florence, 1610. The city glitters with torchlight as Galileo returns, summoned by none other than Cosimo II de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany. The Medici palace looms, its stone walls echoing with footsteps of courtiers and whispers of intrigue. You walk with him into the grand hall, the air perfumed with incense and polished wood. Courtiers watch with narrowed eyes, measuring every movement of the scholar who dares to claim he has seen farther than any man alive. Galileo bows, then lifts his telescope. One by one he invites the Duke, his brothers, and the courtiers to peer through the glass. Gasps echo as they see Jupiter's moons, bright and sharp against the velvet dark. 4 lights in motion, proof that not all orbits circle Earth. Galileo seizes the moment. He names them the Medicean stars, dedicating the discovery to Cosimo. It is both homage and strategy. With the Medici name attached to the heavens, his work becomes not just science but dynasty, protected by power. The Duke beams. He rewards Galileo with a position as court mathematician, honors that bring security and prestige. Galileo feels triumph rush through him. At last, his truths are not only whispered in the dark, they are celebrated in the light of a grand court. But not all are pleased. In the corners of the hall, scholars whisper behind gloved hands. Flatterer, some say. Charlatan, others mutter. They scowl at his boldness, his arrogance. That night, in the palace gardens, Galileo walks alone. The sweet scent of orange blossoms lingers in the air, yet his thoughts are not of beauty. He knows his enemies multiply with every discovery, every favor from the Duke. Protection from the Medici is powerful, but protection also paints a target. Another flicker, another shadow. Rome, later. The Inquisition chamber again. Galileo older, frail, standing before stern faces. The judges hold not only his books, but his letters to the Medici. One speaks coldly. You sought to harness the heavens for worldly power. That is not the way of truth. The vision fades, leaving him under the Florentine stars. He gazes upward. The Medicean moons still shine, steady and loyal. Yet Galileo knows, loyalty from men is far less certain. The universities of Italy hum with rivalry. In Bologna, in Rome, in Florence, scholars debate in cloisters and lecture halls, voices rising like the drone of bees. And the name always at the center is Galileo. You walk with him through a crowded hall in Florence, where his words echo against painted ceilings. He demonstrates his telescope, explains the moons, the jagged surface of the moon, the stars without number. Students lean forward, wide-eyed, but among the listeners sit men with arms folded, brows furrowed. They whisper afterward. He contradicts Aristotle. He undermines scripture. Dangerous. In Rome, the Jesuit astronomers study his claims. At first, some confirm them. They too see Jupiter's moons. They too glimpse the roughness of the lunar surface. But admiration quickly cools. The more Galileo speaks, the bolder his tone, the sharper his criticisms of those who doubt him. Pride makes enemies as swiftly as brilliance wins admirers. In sermons, priests begin to warn against new philosophers who threaten the harmony of God's order. Pamphlets circulate, mocking him, twisting his words. One calls him a conjurer of glass illusions. Another brands him arrogant, unfaithful. At night, Galileo sits at his desk, letters spread before him. Some are from princes and patrons, praise, encouragement, gifts. Others drip with venom, accusations, insults, veiled threats. His hand trembles as he folds one away. He is both celebrated and despised, lifted high and dragged down in the same breath. Then, a flicker again. Rome, the trial chamber. Older Galileo stands, lips trembling as an inquisitor thunders. You placed your own reason above Holy Scripture. You mocked those who warned you. You spread doubt among the faithful. The vision vanishes. The candle on his desk gutters. He exhales, staring at the flame. The stars above remain silent, impartial, brilliant. But the voices of men grow louder, hungrier. And Galileo knows, truth alone will not shield him from their anger. The villa outside Florence is quiet, surrounded by olive groves and the hum of cicadas in summer. Galileo sits by the window, his telescope set aside. In his hand, a letter, folded neatly, sealed with wax. You sit with him as he breaks it open. The handwriting is delicate, steady. His daughter, Virginia, now Sister Maria Celeste, writing from the convent of San Mateo. Her words are tender. She speaks of daily prayers, of tending gardens, of simple meals of beans and bread. She asks about his health, urges him not to overwork, to care for his eyes, his spirit. She reminds him, gently, always gently, that God watches even the restless. Galileo reads slowly, his lips trembling at her kindness. He smiles faintly, then lowers the letter, gazing out at the hills. In the silence, he is not the celebrated court mathematician, nor the scourge of Aristotelians, nor the dangerous heretic. He is only a father, old, weary, clinging to the affection of a daughter hidden behind convent walls. But even here, shadows press close. Supplies are scarce. The convent struggles. Maria Celeste asks him for flour, for wine, for medicine. Galileo sends what he can: bread, clothing, herbs gathered from the hills. Yet each gift feels small compared to what he owes her: peace, safety, a world without the looming specter of trial. At night, alone in his chamber, he rereads her words by candlelight. The ink glimmers, the parchment soft between his fingers. For a few moments, he feels calm, anchored. Then, another flicker, another vision: Rome, the trial chamber. Galileo, stooped and trembling, looks up at the judges. Among the many voices raised against him, one gentle voice seems absent. The daughter who prayed for his soul, who wrote him letters filled with love. She will not be there when he kneels. Her prayers will not shield him. The image fades. He presses the letter to his chest, whispering her name. The night outside is filled with stars, cold and countless. And Galileo knows. The trial is no longer a distant shadow. It is almost here, Rome, 1633. The hall is cold, the air heavy with the smell of stone, wax, and authority. Galileo kneels. His hair is white now, his hands unsteady. The judges glare down from their high seats, their words sharp as blades. Do you abjure, curse, and detest these heresies? He speaks the words they demand. His voice is thin, broken, but it carries. He denies what his eyes have seen, denies the worlds he mapped, denies the truths he gave to ink and parchment. The chamber echoes with his surrender. But within, something does not yield. When the sentence is pronounced, house arrest for life, Galileo lowers his eyes. Yet in the silence of his heart, another whisper rises. Eppur si muove, and yet it moves. The earth beneath their feet, the heavens above their heads. No decree, no threat, no trial can still the turning of the world. Later, in his villa at Arcetri, the olive trees sway in the Tuscan wind. Galileo sits blind now, his eyes lost to years of strain, but his mind still restless. His daughter, Maria Celeste, writes until her final illness takes her. Her letters remain his comfort, her prayers his unseen companion. You sit with him one last time. His hands trace the wooden frame of his telescope, a relic of nights long gone. Though he cannot see the stars, he remembers them. The rough face of the moon, the dance of Jupiter's moons, the endless river of the Milky Way. The candle on his table gutters low. Shadows stretch across the room. Yet Galileo's voice, soft but steady, breaks the silence. The truth of nature is not in the keeping of men. It waits, patient, until eyes are opened. He leans back, breath slowing. The olive branches rustle. The night deepens. And somewhere above, unseen but eternal, the heavens turn still. Galileo's legacy would outlive the judges, the prisons, the whispers. His discoveries would seed the modern world. Clocks, maps, voyages, science itself. But more than that, his defiance remains a lesson. That truth, though buried, always rises again. The stars he revealed still burn tonight. And if you look upward, you may feel, as he once did, that the universe is wider, stranger, and more wondrous than we dare to imagine.